Why does one quiet evening by the fire turn into the end of everything? How does a harmless talk with an ex become evidence that burns brighter than the flames themselves? Can honesty save a relationship when trust has already turned to ash? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Maren Vale, and I swear I didn't mean for one quiet night by the fire to burn my whole life down. It was supposed to be harmless, just me and my ex Theo, sitting near the fire pit, catching up like two mature adults who'd moved on. My boyfriend Ian was working late, and I thought there was no harm in talking. I told myself it was closure, maybe even kindness. But the truth is, I liked the attention. I liked that Theo still looked at me the way Ian didn't anymore. When Ian came home and saw us laughing, the look on his face was something I'll never forget. He didn't shout or accuse me, he just went quiet. That silence felt worse than anger. I tried to explain, to twist it into something innocent, but the damage was already done. By the time I realized Ian's quiet wasn't hurt, it was planning. It was too late. I still tell myself I was honest. I still tell myself it wasn't cheating. But every time I replay that night, I see the flames flickering on Theo's smile and Ian's eyes in the dark, already calculating how to walk away without looking back. I swear I didn't plan for one quiet evening to unravel everything. The night started soft, just a chill in the air, the faint crackle of wood in the fire pit, and the glow that made the backyard look like a postcard. I told myself it was fine, that sitting with Theo was no big deal. We'd dated years ago, long before Ian, and I wanted to prove to myself that I was over it, that I could handle a little nostalgia without guilt. Theo arrived with that easy smile of his, carrying a bottle of wine like we were still in college. I almost told him not to bother, but he'd already poured 2 glasses before I could say no. He said it felt nice to catch up, that he missed having someone who actually listened. I laughed, said Ian worked nights and barely had time to breathe, let alone listen. I didn't realize how that sounded until Theo smiled wider. We talked about everything, old friends, stupid mistakes, even how we'd ended things. I said I barely remembered the fights. He said he remembered the good parts. It was innocent enough, or that's what I told myself. When he leaned back and said I hadn't changed at all, I felt a flicker of something I didn't want to name. The way the light hit his face, the way the fire reflected in his eyes, it reminded me of how easy things used to be. I told myself it was fine. Ian trusted me. I deserved to have friends, even if one of them happened to be an ex. That's what adults do, right? Stay civil, stay connected, prove they're above jealousy. I wanted to be that kind of woman, confident, modern, untouchable. When Ian came home, I didn't hear the door right away. Theo was telling some story about the time we got lost hiking and ended up in a thunderstorm. I was laughing, head tilted back, when I saw Ian in the doorway. He didn't say a word, just stood there, still in his uniform, eyes unreadable. Theo turned, greeted him like nothing was strange. Ian nodded, polite but cold. I tried to brush it off, offered Ian a glass, but he said he was tired. His voice was quiet, too calm. He asked how long Theo had been here. I said not long, maybe an hour, though it had been closer to 3. He asked why I didn't mention it earlier. I said it just came up, that Theo had texted last minute. I could feel the air thickening, the space between us turning sharp. Theo, oblivious or pretending to be, said he should probably get going. I told him not to worry, that Ian was just exhausted. Ian didn't argue. He just watched Theo walk out, then looked at me like he was memorizing every detail. I tried to explain. It was nothing. We were just talking. But he didn't respond. He hung up his jacket, walked past me, and disappeared down the hall. That silence felt unbearable. I hated it more than anger. I followed him, asking if he was really upset over a simple conversation. He said he wasn't upset, just tired. That word again, tired. I said he was being dramatic. He said nothing, just changed into sleep clothes and lay down facing the wall. I stood there in the doorway, arms crossed, waiting for him to turn around. He didn't. I muttered that I'd done nothing wrong, that he was twisting everything. Still nothing. I went to the kitchen, poured another glass of wine, and sat by the dying fire. I told myself he'd come around by morning. He always did. The next day, the bed beside me was cold. His uniform was gone from the chair, the apartment too quiet. I texted him a simple good morning, then another after an hour. We need to talk. No reply. When I went to make coffee, I saw his mug rinsed clean, sitting on the opposite counter from mine. Separate sides, separate worlds. I tried to laugh about it when I called my mother. She said men are fragile, that I shouldn't let his insecurity make me feel guilty. You were being friendly, she said. He's lucky you're still in touch with people. I wanted to believe her. I told her she was right, that Ian was overreacting. But when I hung up, something about the silence in the house unsettled me. Later, when I went to put away dishes, I noticed his tablet open on the counter. A single notification blinked on the screen. Calendar, downtown, 9:45 a.m. I didn't think much of it at first, just another errand or work meeting. But the time felt oddly specific. Ian never wrote things down like that. When he got home that evening, I tried to be normal. Asked about his shift, offered dinner, pretended nothing had happened. He was polite, distant, the kind of calm that makes you nervous. He said he had to shower and then sat at the kitchen table afterward, scrolling on his phone. I told him Theo had messaged to say sorry for the awkwardness. Ian looked up and said, "Awkwardness is normal. Secrets aren't." The words landed like a slap. I told him not to start with paranoia. He said, "I'm not starting anything, just paying attention." Then he went to the living room and turned on the TV. The soft light from the screen flickered against his face, unreadable as ever. I texted Theo, telling him maybe it was best we didn't talk for a while. He replied instantly, "You okay?" I typed back, "Yeah," then deleted it before hitting send. It felt wrong to answer, but worse not to. When I went back to the kitchen, the smell of coffee lingered, even though it was late. Ian's tablet was gone. The calendar alert no longer glowed on the counter. I tried not to think about it, but my stomach twisted. I wanted him to yell, to accuse me, to do something that would give me control again. But he didn't. His silence left me guessing, and guessing made me frantic. That night, I climbed into bed and whispered that I loved him. He didn't answer. The only sound was the faint hum of the fridge and the tick of the hallway clock. I told myself he'd forgive me, that he always did, that men like Ian don't leave. They brood, they cool off, and they come back around. But when I woke before dawn, I heard the soft creak of the floorboards and the front door closing. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of his car pulling out of the driveway, taillights fading into the dark. The fire pit outside was cold now, ashes grey and still. I sat by the window, holding my mug, waiting for a message that never came. Somewhere between the silence and the glow of my phone screen, I started rehearsing the story I'd tell. How nothing happened, how I was the one being misunderstood, how love shouldn't feel like surveillance. By sunrise, I'd convinced myself that he'd see reason. That one quiet night couldn't destroy everything. But deep down, I knew something had shifted, the kind of silence that doesn't end with forgiveness, it ends with evidence. By Monday, everyone at work already knew about the fire pit. I didn't even realize how fast gossip could travel until Sarah from accounting smiled at me over her mug and said she'd seen the cute picture. I froze. Apparently, someone had tagged me in a post Theo made. Nothing wild, just him holding up his wineglass near the fire, captioned, "Good company and better memories." But the photo angle showed my arm in the corner, my bracelet shining in the flame light. I hadn't noticed him take it. I laughed it off, told Sarah it was an old photo. She raised an eyebrow and I added, "Ian's not really a social media person. He doesn't get it." That line always worked, painting myself as the carefree one, him as the dull one. People love a story where the woman just wants to live. By lunch, I'd decided to control the narrative. I posted a photo of myself at my desk with the caption, "Monday moods and too much caffeine." Casual, clean, nothing incriminating. But I made sure my hand, the same one from Theo's photo, was holding the mug in the exact same bracelet. I wanted to show I had nothing to hide. When I got home that evening, Ian was sitting on the couch, scrolling quietly. I asked if he'd seen the post going around. He said yes. I told him it wasn't a big deal. He said it shouldn't have been one, but it was. I told him he was being dramatic, and that people read into things that don't matter. He just said, maybe you should start caring about what matters to the person you live with. I didn't know how to answer that, so I made dinner instead. The silence between us was heavy, broken only by the scrape of cutlery. I told him he could at least try to be supportive, that everyone gets photographed with an ex now and then. He didn't respond. Halfway through the meal, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then turned the screen down. Later that night, while he showered, I walked past his office. His laptop screen glowed softly on the desk. A folder sat open, clean and organized, titled Archive A. Inside were subfolders with dates. I didn't click, but the sight of it made my stomach twist. Ian never labeled things like that. His usual desktop was chaos, random files, screenshots, half-written reports. This was different, precise. I shut the door and went to bed. When he joined me, he stayed on his side, facing away. I whispered that I loved him. He didn't move. At work the next day, my coworker Jordan slid into my cubicle, grinning. "So, you and your ex, huh?" I asked what he meant, and he showed me his phone. Theo had commented on his own photo, replying to someone, "Old flames, new laughs." My name was tagged beneath it. I typed out a quick message to Theo. "Delete that. Now." He replied, "Did I cross a line?" "You always said we're fine." I didn't answer. By mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed again, this time from my sister Nina. She'd seen the post too. "You really think Ian's okay with this?" she texted. I told her to mind her business. She replied, "Just remember he's not stupid." That evening, I tried to start light conversation over dinner, asking Ian about his day. He said it was fine. I asked if he wanted to watch something. He said he had work to finish. I rolled my eyes, muttering about how he was making everything tense. He looked up then, finally, and said quietly, "You're good at making things look fine when they're not." I wanted to argue, but something about his tone stopped me. I said, "You're twisting things. It's called being normal." He said, "Normal doesn't mean careless." Then he stood up, took his plate to the sink, and washed it slowly, like he had all the time in the world. When he left for his night shift, I saw the faint light of his office through the cracked door. The printer made a small hum, spitting out one clean page. I told myself it was work stuff, but part of me knew it wasn't. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing again. My mother had commented on Theo's post. "So nice you two stayed friends." I wanted to scream. I called her immediately, hissing that she had to delete it. She said she didn't understand why I was so worked up. "It's good that you're on friendly terms. Shows you're mature." I hung up before saying something I'd regret. At the office, whispers followed me into every room. I smiled through it, laughed when people teased. I said Ian was fine, that he knew I was trustworthy. That word felt sour on my tongue. Trustworthy. I used it like armor. At home that night, Ian was already there. He'd cooked, which was unusual. I thanked him, trying to sound cheerful. He said nothing, just served 2 plates. When I asked about his day, he said it was productive. I asked what he meant, and he said, "Just sorting things out." After dinner, I noticed a small notebook on the counter, half hidden under the mail. The cover was blank. I flipped it open out of habit, but it was empty, except for one note near the top of the first page. File uploaded successfully. No date, no details. Just that. I asked him if it was his. He said yes. I asked what it meant. He said, nothing important. Then he took it gently from my hands and placed it in a drawer. The click of the drawer lock made me shiver. I texted Theo again, this time angry. Why are you still posting about that night? He replied, because people liked it. You looked happy. I deleted the conversation and told myself it didn't matter. But when I glanced at Ian's side of the counter, I saw a small sticky note stuck under his mug. It read, "Bring forms." I spent the next day pretending everything was fine. At lunch, Jordan joked that I'd better invite my ex to the next office party. I laughed, said maybe I'd bring both of them. Everyone laughed. It felt like control again, like I could turn gossip into confidence. That illusion broke when my manager pulled me aside. She said HR had received a call asking if I'd been involved with a client outside of work. I froze. Apparently, someone's been inquiring about your social conduct, she said carefully. I laughed it off, but my throat felt tight. When I got home, Ian wasn't there. His shoes were gone from the hallway. On the counter, only one mug sat, his usual spot empty. I walked into the living room and noticed his briefcase open, a few papers missing. A single USB lay beside it, labeled only with a date. I sat down, staring at it for a long time. My reflection looked warped in the silver casing. I told myself not to panic. It was probably for work. Everything had an explanation if I said it confidently enough. That night, when he finally came home, I tried to act casual. Asked if he'd eaten. He said yes. I said we needed to stop letting other people's opinions ruin us. He nodded. I said maybe we should plan a trip, get away for a weekend. He said, maybe after things are settled. Settled? I asked. He looked up at me for a long second, then said, you'll understand soon. When he walked out of the room, I saw his tablet light up again on the table. A folder name flashed briefly before the screen went dark. Archive B. I stood there, wineglass trembling slightly in my hand, realizing that for the first time since the Firepit, I didn't know what story I was in anymore, or who was writing it. The barbecue was supposed to fix everything. That's what I told myself when Ben invited us over for the weekend. Fresh air, familiar faces, laughter, anything to break the tension that had settled over our house like dust. I convinced Ian it would be good for us, that people needed to see we were fine. He didn't argue, just said, if that's what you want. The way he said it sounded like permission, not agreement. The afternoon was warm, the kind that makes everyone relax faster. Kids ran across the grass, someone turned up a playlist, and the smell of grilled corn drifted through the yard. Ian stood by the drinks table, quiet, holding a beer like it was an anchor. I tried to look carefree, chatting with Claire about work and laughing louder than I needed to. When Theo showed up, I felt my stomach drop. He wasn't invited, at least not by me, but apparently Ben had added him last minute because they'd reconnected online. Theo waved from across the yard like nothing had happened. I forced a smile, pretending my heart wasn't pounding. I could feel Ian's eyes on me before I even turned. Theo walked over, holding 2 beers. Truce drink, he said, like we were in on some joke. I took it because refusing would make things obvious. Ian didn't say anything. He just watched, calm as ever. That calmness felt heavier than any fight could have been. People started noticing the tension. Claire leaned over and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded too fast. I made a show of laughing at Theo's story about our college camping trip, pretending not to notice the phone cameras pointed in our direction. Someone shouted, "You two have history!" And everyone laughed. I laughed too brightly, and said, "We're proof exes can be friends." The moment hung there. Ian didn't move. His face didn't even twitch. That blankness made me angrier than jealousy ever could. I wanted him to react, to defend what was his, to make me feel like I mattered. But he didn't take the bait. He set his beer down, said something quietly to Ben, and started helping at the grill like nothing had happened. I hated how composed he looked. I went over to him, asked why he was being weird. He said, "You're doing fine without my help." I told him not to be passive-aggressive. He said, "I'm not. You just seem busy performing." That word, performing, stung. Later, when the sun dipped low and the fire pit was lit again, people circled around with drinks. Theo sat beside me, uninvited, close enough that his knee brushed mine. I shifted slightly but didn't move away. He joked about the old days, how I used to make him chase me for attention. I said I hadn't changed much. That earned a few laughs from the group. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ian turn his head toward the sound, then look away. The night blurred with laughter, clinking bottles and phone flashes. Every time someone snapped a picture, I straightened my shoulders, made sure my smile looked natural. I wanted the internet to see I was still that effortless woman who could hold a crowd, not someone whose relationship was quietly unraveling. When it was time to leave, Ian found me near the cooler. He said softly, "You made your point." I asked what point that was. He didn't answer. He just walked away toward the car. I followed, forcing a smile at everyone, pretending nothing was wrong. The drive home was quiet except for the sound of the tires on the road. I said he was overreacting, that I hadn't done anything wrong. He said, "I never said you did." I asked what that was supposed to mean. He said, "You don't have to cross a line to prove where you stand." I told him to stop speaking in riddles. He said, "You just don't like it when words don't bend for you." I turned toward the window, furious. When we got home, he went straight to his office. I heard the faint click of his drawer locking again. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone. Sure enough, someone had posted a group photo from the barbecue. There I was, laughing beside Theo, his arm just slightly behind me. The caption read, "Old flames, still friendly." The comments were already piling up. I showed it to Ian, demanding he look. He glanced, nodded once and said, "You look happy." I said, "That's all you have to say?" He shrugged. "What else is there?" I spent the rest of the night defending myself to people online who didn't even know me. Every time I wrote a comment explaining, I felt more desperate. I deleted the post from my profile, but screenshots were already circulating. By morning, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Nina called. "What are you doing?" she asked. I told her people were twisting things. She said, "No, you're twisting them." I told her she was taking his side again. She said, "I'm taking reality's side." Then she hung up. At work, the gossip reached new levels. Someone had made a meme out of the barbecue photo, pairing it with the caption, "When your ex still lights the fire." It was everywhere. My stomach turned every time I saw it. I told myself it would blow over if I acted confident enough. When I got home, Ian was waiting. Not angry, never angry, just sitting there with that same calm expression. I said we needed to talk. He said, "Go ahead." I asked if he believed me, if he trusted me. He said, "Belief isn't the same as evidence." I snapped, "You're talking like a detective." He said, "Someone has to." I told him I couldn't live like this, being judged for things that weren't my fault. He said, "Then stop making them look like they are." I asked what that meant. He said nothing, just reached into his pocket and set his keys on the table. That night, I checked his office again when he fell asleep. The drawers were locked, but on the desk sat a small USB drive labeled by date. Next to it, a paper with scribbles, my name, a few timestamps, and the word BBQ. My chest went tight. I wanted to wake him, demand an explanation, but I didn't. Instead, I poured a drink and stared at the fire pit through the window. The ashes still looked like eyes. The following morning, he left early. I stayed in bed, pretending to sleep until I heard the car start. When I finally got up, There was a single sticky note on the counter. Follow-up, 11:20 a.m. No other words. I stood there reading it over and over. It wasn't romantic, not threatening either, just efficient, like a schedule. I texted Nina again, asking if I could come by that evening. She didn't answer for hours, then finally wrote, "You might want to talk to him instead." I threw the phone on the couch and stared at the ceiling until it got dark. When Ian came home that night, he found me on the porch. I told him I couldn't take the distance anymore. He said, "Then stop building it." I said he was the one pulling away. He said, "I'm giving you space, the kind you keep asking for." I told him I never asked for this kind of space. He just nodded, finished his drink, and went inside. Later, I saw the faint blue light of his screen through the office window. For a second, I thought I saw my own reflection there, smiling, laughing beside Theo, frozen in pixels forever. I closed the curtains. I went to bed alone, the smell of smoke still clinging to my hair from the barbecue. Somewhere between guilt and defiance, I told myself the same lie again. I was innocent. It wasn't cheating, it was just catching up. Just a joke that got too loud, but even I didn't believe it anymore. When the silence got too thick, I drove to my mother's house. I told myself I needed a change of scenery, but really, I just wanted someone to tell me I was right. The drive was long and grey, the kind where you think too much. The radio played a song Ian used to hum in the kitchen, and I turned it off halfway through. Mom was watering her plants when I arrived. She looked up, smiled, and said, "You look tired, sweetheart." I said I wasn't sleeping much. She asked if Ian was still being distant. I nodded, waiting for the sympathy. "He just doesn't understand boundaries," I said. "He acts like being friendly with someone is betrayal." She set down the watering can and said, "Men don't like sharing their place in your story, even when they should know better." I hugged her for that. It felt like permission. Nina showed up an hour later, hair damp from the rain, holding her phone. She didn't sit. "What is this?" she asked, turning the screen toward me. It was another post, one of those cropped screenshots from the barbecue, the caption reading, "She doesn't even look guilty." It had hundreds of comments. My stomach twisted. I told her people needed something to talk about. She said, "They're talking because you gave them something to see." Mom frowned. "Don't talk to your sister like that. She's been through enough." Nina ignored her. "You keep acting like he's the problem, but you're the one pouring gasoline on it." I laughed, bitter. "You sound like him." Maybe because he's the only one not lying to himself. Mom told her to stop, said this wasn't helping. But Nina wasn't done. "You think being clever online makes you powerful, but all it makes you is public." I stood up, heart pounding. "You don't know what you're talking about. Ian's been keeping secrets too. He's got folders, notes, appointments he won't explain." "That's not secrecy," Nina said. "That's preparation." The word hit harder than I wanted it to. When she left, I sat on the couch, watching the rain streak down the window. Mum brought me tea and said softly, "Men always come around. They like to feel righteous first, but they'll come back." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe Ian was just proving a point. That night, I texted him, "Can we talk?" No answer. I sent another. "I'm at Mum's. You can call if you want." Still nothing. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred, then scrolled through old photos, vacations, birthdays, the first Firepit night when we'd just moved in. I'd posted that one too, months ago. He was smiling in it, arm around me, before the distance started. Around midnight, a notification popped up. Theo again. Saw the drama online. "Want to clear the air?" I typed back, "No. Please stop messaging me." Then I deleted the thread, my hand shaking. The next morning, Mom made pancakes like when I was a kid. I barely ate. The phone buzzed again, this time from Claire. "Hey, just so you know, people are saying Ian's meeting with someone downtown." My chest tightened. "Who?" I typed. She replied, "No clue." Maybe HR stuff. He was seen near the courthouse, though. Courthouse. The word didn't fit right in my brain. I told myself it was probably work-related. He'd had weird shifts before, but then I remembered the sticky notes, the calendar times, the word forms. My appetite vanished completely. By afternoon, I couldn't sit still. I packed my bag, told Mom I needed to check on things. She looked worried but didn't stop me. "Just be gentle with him," she said. "Don't make it worse." When I got home, the driveway looked strange without his car. Inside, everything was too neat. The mail stack was gone from the counter. The house smelled faintly like printer ink. I checked his office, locked. My heart raced. I went to the kitchen and opened drawers, looking for anything that felt like proof I still belonged there. My favorite mug was gone from the shelf. His too. In the sink sat only one glass, rinsed clean. I sat on the couch, breathing hard. When the door finally opened, he stepped in quietly, like nothing was wrong. He hung his jacket on the hook, washed his hands, and asked if I'd eaten. I said, "You've been avoiding me." He said, "I've been working." I stood, blocking his path. "At the courthouse?" He met my eyes but didn't answer. "What are you doing, Ian?" "Finishing what you started." I laughed, trying to sound casual. "You're being ridiculous." He shrugged, walked past me, and sat down at the table. "You've called me that a lot lately. Maybe it's true." "Then why stay?" I snapped. He looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "Because I wanted to see if honesty would ever come from you first." The words landed like stones. I said, "You're acting like I cheated." He said, "You keep saying acting, as if the scene's not over yet." He stood, rinsed his cup, and went to his office. The door closed with that soft, careful click again. I sat there shaking. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but instead I scrolled through my phone, searching for sympathy. My mother's comment under one of the old photos read, "Every couple has storms, but love wins." It had 2 likes. I turned off the phone and pressed my forehead against my hands. The sound of the printer started again from down the hall. That slow hum, followed by a mechanical sigh. A sheet sliding out. Then another. I wanted to open the door, to see what he was printing, but I stayed frozen. When he came out, he looked almost peaceful. He placed a small stack of papers into a folder and set it on the shelf. "You should get some sleep," he said. "I can't sleep when you're like this." "I'm always like this," he said. "You just finally noticed." After he went to bed, I sat awake until dawn. The folder glowed faintly in the morning light, labeled Household. My throat tightened. I walked closer, but it was too high to reach without dragging a chair, and the thought of making noise terrified me. The next day, Nina texted again. "Don't make him your enemy. He's not doing what you think he is." I asked, "Then what is he doing?" She replied, making sure he never has to argue again. I didn't answer. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him at work, but it went to voicemail. I left a message saying we needed to fix this, that we could go to counseling, that none of this was worth tearing everything apart. My voice cracked halfway through. He never called back. When I finally went upstairs, his side of the closet was empty. His uniforms were gone, his shoes missing from the rack. The guest bed was made perfectly, blanket folded once at the foot. I sat down on the edge, staring at it until my eyes burned. The printer started again downstairs, just once. A single page. I stayed where I was, listening to the paper slide out, the soft beep that followed, and then silence. I told myself it was nothing, that he was just organizing. But in my chest, something whispered that organization was the first step of departure. By midnight, I was back in bed, wide awake, trying not to imagine what his folders said, what dates were written inside. The sound of his car pulling into the driveway a few hours later felt like both relief and dread. He came in quietly, placed his phone on the dresser, and said, "We'll talk soon." "About what?" He didn't answer. He just turned off the light, leaving me staring at the dark. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling through the trees near the fire pit, scattering ashes that still hadn't cooled. It sounded almost like whispers, small, careful, inevitable. I didn't hear from Ian for 2 days. The house felt hollow without his quiet sounds. The coffee grinder, the creak of his chair, the faint clicks of the printer. I told myself I didn't care, that I needed space too, but every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him. It never was. People online were still talking about the barbecue photo, recycling it into jokes I couldn't control anymore. I tried replying to a few, defending myself, then deleted everything. It just made me look desperate. By Wednesday, I was pacing the kitchen, opening and closing drawers, just to hear something move. The air smelled like rain and toner again. I found another sticky note under the fruit bowl, just a time and a word. Delivery, 2:15. I crumpled it and tossed it into the sink. He was doing it on purpose now, leaving clues just vague enough to bother me. That afternoon I called Nina. She picked up on the third ring, her voice tired. "You can't keep spinning this," she said before I even spoke. "I just want to talk to him," I said. "He doesn't want to talk, Maren. He's making decisions." "About what?" She sighed. "You already know." I hung up before she could keep going. When Ian came home that night, I was waiting by the door. I asked where he'd been. He said, "Out." I asked if he planned on living here or if I should stop waiting up. He said, "You can stop waiting." It hit me like a slap. "So that's it? You're walking away because I talked to someone?" He looked at me for a long moment before saying, "Because you lied about why." I didn't lie. You lied when you said you wanted closure, you wanted attention. You lied when you said I was the one who didn't listen. I've been listening this whole time. He walked past me, calm as ever. That tone made me want to scream. "You're not even angry," I shouted. He stopped at the hallway. "You've mistaken silence for weakness since the day we met. I was wrong to let you." I followed him, accusing him of twisting things, of making himself the victim. He didn't turn around. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about order." "Order?" I laughed bitterly. "You sound like a cop." He didn't respond. Later, I heard the soft beep of his phone in the guest room. A message preview flashed through the door's crack. "Paper drop confirmed." My chest tightened. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, felt like a countdown. The next morning, he made coffee like always, poured 2 mugs and set one on the counter. I said we needed to stop this Cold War act. He said, "You're the one still fighting." "I'm fighting for us." "You're fighting for your version." He left for work before I could reply. I spent the day cleaning obsessively, needing to control something. I wiped every surface, rearranged the books, even scrubbed the sink until it gleamed. The silence followed me everywhere. Around noon, a delivery truck stopped in front of the house. A man dropped off a flat envelope addressed to Ian, legal-looking. My stomach turned. I almost opened it, but something stopped me. I hid it under the stack of magazines on the counter. When he got home, he saw it instantly. "You touched this?" "I didn't open it," I said. "Good," he said simply, sliding it under his arm. I snapped. "You're scaring me with this secretive act." "I'm not hiding anything," he said. "You just don't want to see it." "You're being manipulative," I said. "If you want to punish me, just do it." He set the envelope on the table, met my eyes and said, "Punishment implies emotion." "I'm past that." That made me shiver. He packed a small bag that night. I followed him to the driveway, barefoot, rain soaking through my sleeves. "Where are you going?" I shouted. He paused at the car door. "To make things proper." "What does that even mean?" "You'll see soon enough." "Don't do this, Ian." He looked at me one last time, face unreadable. "You keep saying I'm doing something. Maybe I'm just finishing it." The car door shut, and the taillights disappeared down the street. I went back inside, shaking. I poured wine, paced the living room, texted him messages I immediately deleted. I wrote long apologies that sounded too practiced, too late. At midnight, I stood at the window, watching the fire pit through the rain. Its stones were dark, almost black now, surrounded by mud. I whispered that I hadn't cheated, that I'd never meant to hurt him, that all of this was blown out of proportion. At 2 a.m, I got a text. Not from him, unknown number. Meeting confirmed, documentation ready. My heart nearly stopped. I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. I sat on the couch, lights off, phone in my lap, trying to breathe. By dawn, I'd convinced myself he was bluffing. Maybe it was some elaborate test, a way to make me feel what he felt. I'd call his bluff, act unbothered. That would throw him off. When he returned later that morning, he looked almost rested. I asked where he'd been. He said, "Downtown." I asked if it was about us. He said, "Everything's about us, one way or another." He changed clothes, poured coffee, and opened his laptop. I caught a glimpse of a folder on the screen labeled Archive Final. "Why are you doing this?" I asked quietly. He looked at me like the question was strange. "Because you keep rewriting the past. Someone has to document the truth." I didn't do anything wrong. He smiled faintly. "That's the problem. You really believe that." I wanted to throw the mug, scream, anything to crack his calm. Instead, I whispered, "You'll regret this." He looked down at his coffee. "No, I'll handle it properly." The words were soft, final. He left for work soon after, but I knew he wasn't going to the station. I watched from the window until his car turned the corner. Then I ran to his office, pried open the drawer with a knife. Inside were labeled folders: household, utilities, bank, fire pit night, statements. Each one neatly stacked, color-coded. I flipped one open, my own screenshots, messages, timestamps. Every text with Theo, every tag, every post I thought I'd deleted. He'd archived everything. I sank to the floor, dizzy. I wanted to call Nina but couldn't form words. When he returned that evening, I sat at the table waiting. "I saw what you're doing," I said. He didn't look surprised. "Then you know why this can't go on." "I could destroy it," I said. "All your files." He shook his head. "Already backed up." "You're ruining both of us." "No," he said, voice calm. "I'm restoring balance." He poured himself water, turned toward the door, and added, "You wanted attention, Maren. You'll get it." The door closed gently behind him. I sat there for a long time, staring at the faint light seeping under the office door. The printer clicked once more, spitting out a blank page that fluttered to the floor. The sound was almost kind, almost merciful. I picked it up, read the faint ink lines barely visible at the top. "Final copy. Review tomorrow." Tomorrow. That was the word that echoed all night as I lay awake, waiting for him to come back, waiting for something to stop the inevitable. The morning felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. The air was too still, too clean, like the world was holding its breath. Ian wasn't beside me. His side of the bed was cold, sheets tucked in tight. On the dresser, his watch was gone. Only a folded note sat in its place. It said, "You'll find out soon enough." I told myself I wouldn't chase him. I showered, dressed, and forced coffee down, even though it tasted like metal. By 10, I was standing in front of the mirror, trying to look normal. The community fundraiser at the park was that day. Ben and Claire had begged me to come, said it would help calm rumors. I figured showing up would prove I wasn't hiding. The park was crowded, sun bright and cruel. Tables lined the walkway, kids running between them. I smiled too hard, waved at familiar faces, felt my pulse hammer behind my ribs. Claire hugged me, her voice low. "You okay?" I said I was fine. She didn't believe me. Half an hour in, I saw him. Ian stood near the registration tent, talking to a man in a navy jacket. When he saw me, he didn't wave. He just nodded once. The man beside him turned, holding a slim envelope. My stomach sank before he even reached me. "Maren Vale?" he asked. I nodded. He handed me the envelope, crisp and heavy. "You've been served," he said quietly, and walked away. People were staring. Someone dropped their phone trying to record. I wanted to laugh, to pretend it was a prank, but my hands were shaking. I tore the envelope open. The first line blurred before I finished reading it. Notice of civil separation and defamation action. Attached were printed screenshots, my messages, my posts, the threads where I'd called Ian controlling. I looked up. Ian was still standing there, calm, polite, like a man at the end of a long shift. Ben took a step forward, whispering my name, but I couldn't move. The sound of the park dulled, fading into a low hum. I heard only the paper crinkle in my hands. "Ian," I said finally, voice cracking, "you're really doing this?" He didn't raise his voice. "It's already done." People nearby pretended not to watch, though their eyes stayed fixed on us. I wanted to say something clever, something that would make me look like the victim again. Nothing came out. He stepped closer, just enough to lower his tone. "You said honesty would fix everything. Now it will." Then he turned and walked toward the exit, shoulders steady, the sun catching on his hair. No one stopped him. I stood there clutching the papers, unable to breathe. Someone muttered, "That's rough." Another whispered, "Guess the rumors were true." Claire tried to guide me toward a bench, but I pulled away. I could feel my phone buzzing in my pocket, notifications exploding before I'd even looked. I stared at the crowd, at the faces pretending sympathy. The wind lifted the top sheet in my hand, flashing the bold letters, "Temporary orders, effective immediately." The sound of laughter from the playground mixed with the crackle of a fire pit somewhere beyond the park, faint and mocking. I didn't turn to see where it came from. I just kept staring at the papers, the ink bleeding slightly from the sweat on my palms, while the world around me carried on like it had simply been waiting for this moment.